Every single day, I have to relive the trauma. My hands shake. I wake up screaming. I have to live with the trauma and the damage done to me.
She had it all: the face, the fire, the momentum. Amber Heard was Hollywood's new obsession. She wasn't just climbing, she was ascending. And then she became a spectacle. Not because of a film, not because of a scandal, but because millions of strangers tuned in to decide if she was telling the truth or putting on the performance of her life. Amber Heard wasn't canceled in a day. Her reputation didn't explode. It corroded. So how does a woman go from rising star to global pariah? And is that silence we're hearing now a retreat or the start of something else? This isn't just about a courtroom, it's about a character arc, one that played out in real time with viral memes as dialogue and millions of armchair jurors tuning in. Amber Heard became more than a person. She became a symbol, depending on who you ask, of survival, of manipulation, of Hollywood hypocrisy. This is the story of her rise, her reckoning, her fall, and what that eerie quiet in 2025 really says about where fame goes to die. Amber Heard didn't explode onto the scene. She chipped away at the gates of fame with strategy. She wasn't just auditioning for roles, she was auditioning for a future version of herself, the one she knew Hollywood would eventually want. In the late 2000s, she took whatever she could: CW shows, horror flicks, teen thrillers. The parts weren't deep, but her screen presence cut through. You remembered her, the camera liked her, and more importantly, she understood how to be seen. She played with her image: sexy, aloof, intelligent, intimidating. Not quite the girl next door, more like the girl you think you can handle, until you can't. Her breakout roles in Never Back Down, Pineapple Express, and later The Joneses positioned her as the cool girl with an edge. And in a sea of forgettable ingenues, Amber felt different. Then came the Rum Diary and Johnny Depp. He was one of the biggest stars on the planet. She was the up-and-comer. They met on set, started dating shortly after, and almost overnight, she wasn't just promising, she was powerful adjacent. By the time they married in 2015, Amber had gone from Hollywood curiosity to Hollywood insider. She was invited to Met Galas, front rows at Fashion Week, luxury endorsements. Casting agents saw her as bankable, not because she was leading box office hits, but because she was part of the machine now. The kind of woman who could front a franchise, carry a cosmetic line, or headline a GQ cover. And just as her biggest film, Aquaman, was heading into promo, her personal life began to unravel. The red carpet was still rolling, but the story had already changed behind the scenes. In May 2016, Amber filed for divorce. That headline alone was enough for the tabloids. But then, days later, she walked into a Los Angeles courthouse seeking a restraining order against Depp. She alleged physical abuse. Photos surfaced showing bruises on her face. Public records and sworn declarations painted Depp as volatile, angry, violent. To many, it seemed like another Me Too story, a woman speaking out against a powerful man. And at first, many believed her. She was invited to events, quoted in advocacy campaigns, interviewed about abuse and trauma. By 2018, she'd written an op-ed in the Washington Post, presenting herself as someone who became a public figure representing domestic abuse. She didn't name Depp, but she didn't have to. The implication was loud, louder than his career, which was starting to crack. He lost roles. PR turned cold. Warner Brothers began distancing from him. And that's when the counterattack began. In 2019, Depp sued Heard for $50 million, calling the op-ed defamatory. He claimed he was the one being abused, that he had lost everything. Suddenly, the story wasn't hers anymore. Leaked audio showed Amber admitting to hitting Depp and challenging him to speak up, saying no one would believe him. The internet started turning, slowly at first, then with force. Where once she'd been framed as a survivor, now she was being called an abuser. Memes, YouTube breakdowns, body language experts diagnosing her behavior. She wasn't on trial yet, but the public had already started to vote. And when the trial finally arrived in 2022, it didn't feel like justice. It felt like entertainment. In 2022, the trial began, and the internet stopped everything to watch it. This wasn't just a legal battle, it became the biggest entertainment event of the year. Live streams racked up millions of views. Twitter threads went viral before the court broke for lunch. And on TikTok, courtroom clips turned into memes faster than you could say, "Objection, hearsay." Suddenly, Amber Heard wasn't just on the stand. She was under a microscope. The way she cried, the way she looked at the jury, even how she drank water, all dissected, analyzed, ridiculed. Her testimony was detailed, emotional, and often difficult to hear. But to the internet, it didn't matter. Right or wrong, the reaction was brutal. She was being treated like a punchline. Clips of her breaking down were remixed into jokes. Lines like "my dog stepped on a bee" went viral, not because of what she said, but because people thought it sounded fake. She was called a liar, a manipulator, a narcissist. And the backlash wasn't casual, it was relentless. For many online, she had already lost the trial before the verdict was even in. Meanwhile, Johnny Depp was cast as the misunderstood legend, flawed, yes, but charming. Familiar. He had the internet's sympathy. Amber had its full-volume judgment. So when the jury awarded Depp $10 million in damages, the response felt less like legal closure and more like a public takedown. Depp's fans celebrated. Amber issued a statement calling the verdict a heartbreak and a setback for women. But few listened. Hollywood responded in silence. Studios backed away. Brand deals vanished. She was reportedly cut from most of Aquaman 2 and left off the press tour entirely. The woman once poised to be a franchise face was now a walking controversy. Not because of one moment or one claim, but because the world had watched her every second and decided they didn't believe her. Fair or not, the result was the same. Amber Heard's image was scorched. Post-trial, Amber Heard didn't go on an apology tour. She didn't cry on camera. She didn't launch a comeback podcast called My Side. She just left. She sold her Los Angeles home, packed up her life, and quietly moved to Spain, away from Hollywood, headlines, and hashtags. By 2023, she was living in Mallorca with her daughter, far from paparazzi and press junkets. No Instagram rebrand, no red carpet moment, no soft launch of a new identity. Just silence. Some called it exile. Others said it was strategy, a way to let the noise fade without adding more fuel. Because one thing was clear, whether people hated her or pitied her, they weren't forgetting her. She gave 1 or 2 short interviews to Spanish outlets. Calm, reserved, careful. She still stood by her truth, she said, but she couldn't keep reliving the trauma. And honestly, she didn't owe the internet any more performance. There was no fanfare, no new chapter post, no Netflix doc on the horizon. And now, in 2025, she's still there, still in Spain. She's been spotted occasionally, grocery shopping, riding horses, speaking fluent Spanish with locals. A handful of indie European films have quietly cast her. No major press, barely any promo, tiny budgets, small festivals, roles that feel more like creative therapy than career strategy. She's not rebuilding her career so much as disassembling it and starting over piece by piece, far away from the engine that once made her a star. Hollywood hasn't welcomed her back. But she hasn't asked. No meetings, no rumored Marvel deals, no reboot rumors. Though, yes, there were whispers in early 2024 that she might appear in a streaming thriller. It didn't happen. Some say the studio backed out, others say she did. And maybe that's the point. She isn't seeking forgiveness. She isn't pitching docuseries. She's not trying to win. She's just absent. And maybe, in an industry addicted to reinvention, absence is its own kind of reinvention. Amber Heard didn't burn out. She backed away, disappeared, let the storm pass, and never came back to clean up the damage. And the silence she left behind. It still echoes louder than any closing statement. Amber Heard's story isn't a clean arc. It's uncomfortable, fractured, the kind of story that feels different depending on who's telling it and who you believe. But whether she was destroyed by a lie or undone by her own truth, the result was the same. She vanished. Not with a bang, not with a finale, but with silence. Deliberate, defiant, and maybe even necessary. If you thought this was wild, just wait until we dive into Lindsay Lohan's actual tabloid spiral of 2007. Hit that like button if you're here for the full story. The rise, the wreckage, and everything Hollywood tries to bury. Drop a comment. Was Amber Heard unfairly erased or finally revealed? And don't forget to subscribe for more pop culture deep dives. Because in the age of receipts and rebrands, the past never stays buried for long. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and remember, not every downfall ends with a redemption arc.